start recording. Okay, welcome everybody to today's mini PD. It is on creating digital portfolios. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. So my name is Katie Maddox. If you do not know who I am the Instructional Technology Coordinator for the Chilton County School District. I have been in this role since August, so right at about 6 months. Prior to this, I was a classroom teacher for 9 years. I have taught math, science, history, writing, and really all subjects because I was a virtual teacher during that year that nobody wants to talk about. I taught grades 4th, 5th, and 6th grade for those years. I am also a certified Google trainer, which means that I do have my level 1 and level 2 educator certifications. And then I also created a video and led enough trainings that I was able to apply to be a Google trainer. And then I hold many other EdTech certifications. And I am currently in the process of completing a technology integration coach certification through the ALET organization, which is Alabama Leaders in Educational Technology. So one thing that I do want to show, just in case you have not used it as a reference tool today, I do have a website that is separate from our Chilton BOE website where I try to house all kinds of instructional resources. I feature our training of the month on there every month. I have virtual bootcamp registrations, PD offerings. Also at the top, I have tabs for past trainings that I have conducted both live and whenever I was still in a school building. I have resources for the digital literacy and computer science standards, Google, and a couple of other things. All of our district What the Tech newsletters can be found on the website, and then a little bit more information about me. So I encourage you to check that out if you have not yet. And today's recording will also be posted on that website as well after I get that edited. So we're jumping right into today. We are talking about using Google tools. Usually my mini PDs are going to be on a focus of Google tools on creating digital portfolios. I kind of have intended this for upper students, like older elementary, mostly middle school and high school. So we're kind of going to start with the top down and go from what's going to be more of our more complicated slash allows more content customization for our high school students and work our way down to something that's a little bit easier. So we're going to start off, which is kind of a table of contents for today. I'm not going to read all of those to you. So what is a digital portfolio? Many of you may be familiar with us. Whenever I went to my first interview, I carried a binder and it had my resume and work samples and lesson plan samples and things like that I was able to physically show a supervisor and showcase my work, things that I had worked hard for. Now in today's age, we can do this digitally. So this is going to be a collection of student work that the student can curate over time to showcase their learning. This can be used in multiple situations for multiple purposes. This could be a portfolio for a certain project. You know, if they're doing, I chose World War I as my portfolio example for lots of these. This could showcase work from entire course. I know Miss Powell, who is attending this session live today, works at our Career Tech Center, and we are working towards those CRI certifications next year. Students could make digital portfolios to show what they've learned in all those classes. Also applicable for our graduating students, they could create a portfolio to showcase their work to use for job interviews. They could email these to potential supervisors to showcase things that they've done. So a digital portfolio is basically a collection of those artifacts that's going to really showcase the good for our student. So starting with, I kind of went over that, got ahead of myself, sorry about that. Starting with Google Sites. So Google Sites is one of our workspace tools that we can use to create websites. The website I just showed you, that's my website, was made with Google Sites. It is extremely customizable, can be slightly intimidating, but it is a great way to showcase what we're looking at and be able to insert and really customize that content. In this presentation, which you'll get a copy of today, I have linked a video where it is me going through the basics on how to set up a Google site and a couple of other things that you just kind of need to know as a crash course. There's tons of stuff out there about how to make Google sites from scratch. So the thing with Google Sites is that if your student is showcasing work that they have done in Google Drive, in docs, slides, sheets, and a couple of other formats, they can insert those things into a Google site to look at. They can customize their theme, their color, their font, and I'm going to show you a Google site example too once I finish going kind of through these things so that you're not just lost thinking, what does that look like? You can also make a copy. So doing some research to prepare for this PD today, a lot of teachers made a template of a site, like they set up a site, they set a certain number of pages and things like that, and then they had their students make their own copies, which is something that can be done, or any student can access this and make their own site. And then we do have some viewing restrictions where within our domain, that being the Chilton BOE domain, we can restrict it where only people within our domain can view it, which is something we would want to do because we don't want any of our students' work to be floating around there on the web. So let's see. Here are a couple of ideas that we could use. My mouse has a mind of its own today. I'm going to just not touch it while I talk, I guess. A couple of ideas that we could use that Google site for. I did an example showcasing a project. So I'm going to jump over to that sample one. So this is what the editing screen looks like. I'm going to go into publishing mode just to kind of show you what the finished product looks like, and then I'll come back into this. Well, that would be this preview button right here. Sorry about that. So I chose to do this on World War I. As a teacher, I have set this up for my students, and I have instructions in bold red text. So this would be something that really draws their eye to the screen. I would also have them delete this, whenever they got done, so that that's not appearing on their portfolio. So I have a timeline right here. I have a little footer at the bottom, but then I have different pages. Like I have the causes of World War I, where they can insert photos. And then this is even a paper that I have written that's saved in my Google Drive as a Google Doc that I've integrated in here. I can also click on this arrow and it will go out to a screen on its own. And it's just in view mode. It will not be in editing mode. I can look at the major battles. This is a Google slide that I borrowed from another resource that is embedded right here within the slide. So I have not moved off of my Google site to be able to review multiple pieces of work. And then the effects of World War I, again, I inserted a Google Doc in here. So this is I like the way that this is set up because you can look at multiple pieces of information within one example. So how we do that is with the customization bar, and I'm not going to go through all of the steps on exactly how to do this because you can watch some of the other videos and resources. But right here, you can see the things that we can add. We can insert YouTube videos, a map, docs, slides, sheets, forms, and charts directly from our Google Drive. So that's something that I think is a really great aspect of using Google Sites versus using an outside product like WordPress, is that we are able to easily integrate all of their work that they've already done. So that's a major plus in my book. Also, like I said, it can be customized with different themes. They can change the colors, the font, they can spend all day designing it for sure. And then the pages aspect is where we can go in and we can list our new pages and create those pages. You can also have like little drop downs, like sub pages, they call them child pages, that allows them to add as much information as they want. Whenever I applied to get into grad school 2 years ago, I had to create a portfolio and I chose to use Google Sites for that. So I had to write several little narratives that all had their own page, that all had my Google Doc embedded into it, so that whoever was viewing the portfolio could read my doc, but still stay on my same Google site, if that makes sense. I did briefly mention the sharing positions. So I have I have published this already, which means that anybody can use my link within the Chilton BOE domain and go and look at this site. Whenever you create a Google site, you have to publish it for anybody to be able to see that final product, but you can also share the draft with people. So let's just say, for example, a teacher is not comfortable with students publishing that work just because then it is technically out there. The students can share their draft with the teacher and the teacher will be able to see the draft version of the website. It doesn't necessarily have to be published. However, if they do choose to publish it, you can limit it to the Chilton County Board of Education, which means that only people within our Chilton County Board of Ed domain will be able to view the site. So that does offer that protection for our students and their work. So Google Sites, I would really suggest this for like our high school level learners. I have never done Google Sites with middle schoolers. That's just something I have always, it's a little bit large of a product for them to really think about what the end product is going to look like, just in my personal opinion. But perfect for our middle schoolers is that we can use Google Slides. I have seen second and third graders make Google Slides. Now, the key to doing this is picking the right template. I would probably not allow them just to set up one on their own. I would probably choose to use a template.
Except it's live and tool.
And then again, I have another video linked on there. That I would have them make their own copy. One great example would be using this to curate like a digital notebook through a class. A lot of teachers who are AMSI trained use science notebooks. And then I've seen lots of other teachers use notebooks versus binders and things like that. So a Google slide could become that notebook, and they could, be able to integrate so many other things like videos and things like that. I found this example from SlidesGo. I get tons of templates from SlidesGo, but this actually does look like a notebook. And one thing that is really key within that slide is that you can create little links within a Google slide. So for example, right here, I have this little link button. If I go into this slideshow and I click on that link, it's going to take me directly to those pages. So that's a really good way to build your slide if you're building on it over a long period of time. Because if you've already graded sections 1, 2, and you want to go to section 3, by building that little link component in there, you as a teacher can skip to that every time. And it's very simple. This is just a hyperlink. I added in the little chain link clip art. But when you insert the link, you have a choice to link it to any slide in the presentation. So that's a really good way for you to, as a teacher, to jump to different aspects. Another thing to consider with Google Slides is that students are going to need to learn the proper copy and paste procedures, because that's probably going to be really vital within building the slide, that they can kind of keep everything on track. So I highly encourage using that template. A lot of teachers go ahead and post Google Slide templates in Google Classroom, and they can make a student their own copy. One great thing about this, thinking about kind of like that upper elementary, middle school age, is that the teacher can still monitor the progress of this. So if the teacher creates the template, pushes it out in Google Classroom, they're able to go to Johnny's slide and pull up and see his progress. So the teacher can still collaborate with the student along the way. With the Google site, until the student adds the teacher as a co-creator, essentially, the teacher will not be able to view anything with that. So again, this is kind of catered more towards that middle school, upper elementary age. But there are numerous amounts of templates out there that would be really, really good for doing this type of digital portfolio. It could be on a project. It could be in a notebook to curate that notebook like we discussed earlier. Our last type of portfolio is something that actually doesn't use a Google product, but you have a free account with Wakelet through Google. And Wakelet is very similar to Pinterest. And I know that probably most people and adults understand what I mean when I say Pinterest. But I have used Wakelet with 4th graders. So I know that down to 4th grade would be able to use this. And so what they can essentially do is curate content without having to really build anything. With a Google site, they're building from scratch. With a Google slide, they're working off a template and kind of inserting information. But a Wakelet's going to be very simple, as like drag and drop. So I have this hyperlinked right here. So this is my sample portfolio for Wakelet. And this is what I've put in here. I found some pictures that I used with the photo search software. It's called Unsplash, that's embedded into Wakelet. I also did get the link from my World War I narrative, and I just pasted it into the box right here. I have the ability to embed directly from YouTube. So I just searched for some World War I videos on YouTube, and then I did copy and share my link from my Google slide. So this is kind of just like a little bulletin board snippet, but it's not taking up as much time for the creation aspect, and you're more or less just getting information. This would also be a really great way to assign group projects or create group portfolios, because multiple students can contribute to this board as well. So Wakelet is something that I'm kind of getting into a little bit more and trying to create and push a little bit more, just because it has a lot of potential to be a really good collaborative resource. Wakelet does also integrate with Google Classroom, so you can import your Google Classroom into Wakelet, and you can set permissions, as tight as you want them or as loose as they want them, being the classroom teacher. So Wakelet would be a really good way for those upper elementary and even up to high school. A Wakelet could be kind of the planning template that a student could use before moving on to their Google site. So one thing I briefly touched on it with Google Sites is that just be conscious of those privacy permissions that we give and those sharing permissions. Every student does have the ability to create their own Google site within Google Workspace. I also think they should be able to publish it with the Chilton County Board of Education. So if you get into this and you see that that's a problem, just shoot me an email and let me know, and I can dig a little bit further into that. We just want to make sure that we protect our students, especially those under the age of 13, that any content that they have is not being shared by any third parties or anything like that on the web. So with digital portfolios, this does address several course of study standards. So within our DLCS, which is our digital literacy and computer science standards, across the board in the global collaborator domain, those creative communication standards about publishing information with the purpose to inform, and digital tools, using digital tools to create and curate content, this addresses every single one of those every time. 9 through 12 has one set of standards, and then grades K through 8 have individual grade level standards. But all of those global collaborator standards, that's going to address that. With our ELA standard, there is a standard that emphasizes using digital and electronic tools appropriately when researching and writing. This addresses that standard. There's also a digital literacy standard that is under the domain of expressions. It's further along, and there are different numbers depending on what grade level you're looking at, but it is explaining or taking digital content and presenting it. So this plays right over into those standards as well. So using a portfolio is really going to step up that technology integration in your classroom and still help you accomplish these course of study standards. So I've showed you these examples. They're linked in here because you're going to get a copy of these presentation. And then I do have some other resources. So an applied digital skills lesson, Google has this whole course of study called Applied Digital Skills. And there is one that takes students how to build a portfolio step by step. So if this is something you're interested in, this is a great lesson to start with your students. And it literally is going to give them videos and help them do it step by step. So this would be a great way to introduce that. I have some more interactive notebook ideas. This complete guide to student digital portfolios is a great resource. I used it to get a lot of my content, a lot of my information for the background for digital portfolios, has lots of suggestions and things like that. And then I've got a link to help for Google Sites, a link to Wakelet, and then Slides Go is where I get my templates for Google Slides. There is a paid version. I do not use that one. I can usually find what I want for the free version. And then this quote came from the Complete Guide to Student Digital Portfolios, and it really resonated because whenever we give a test, that gives a snapshot of what our student has really learned. But a portfolio is going to give you an entire movie. By building a portfolio for a project or to showcase their learning over a course of a period of time, over a learning course, it's really going to give you a big picture of what that student has learned and what they're going to walk away with, a little bit more than a 20-question quiz may. So finally, I've got my email address on here. If you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me at my email or my direct line to my office. I do have a feedback form. It's also going to be on the resources page that I'm going to drop in the chat to our participants in a few minutes. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.